It's a vision, a deeply personal and terrifying experience reported by one of history's most revered mystics, Saint Teresa of Avila. For 1 hour, she claimed to have been shown the very reality of hell, a place reserved for her had she not turned back to God. What she saw was so profound, so horrifying, that it changed her life forever and continues to challenge and fascinate believers and skeptics alike. Hundreds of years later, today, we're journeying into the heart of this incredible story. We'll explore who Saint Teresa was, the context of her life and faith, and the chilling details of a vision. What did she actually see? What did it feel like? And most importantly, what was the purpose of such a terrifying revelation? This isn't just a story about fire and brimstone. It's a story about transformation, divine mercy, and the profound impact 1 hour in hell had on a soul dedicated to heaven. So, stick with me as we unpack the unforgettable vision of Saint Teresa of Avila. Before we dive into the vision itself, let's get to know the woman behind it. Born in 1515 in Spain, Teresa de Cepeda y Amada, later known as Teresa of Avila, was anything but a typical saint from the start. In her youth, she was charming, witty, and a bit vain. She loved reading chivalric romances, which were like the adventure novels of her day, and she cared a lot about her appearance and social standing. She wasn't overtly rebellious, but her heart was often caught up in the things of the world rather than the things of God. At the age of 20, she made the momentous decision to enter a Carmelite convent, Bativenten. Her spiritual life was a struggle. For nearly 20 years, she described her prayer life as lukewarm. She went through the motions, but her heart wasn't fully in it. She found it hard to concentrate. Her mind would wander, and she felt a constant pull between her desire for God and her attachment to worldly comforts and friendships. She was, in many ways, relatable. She was a woman who understood the struggle between the spirit and the flesh, between good intentions and weak follow-through. It's this very human struggle that makes what happened next so powerful. It wasn't a perfect, sinless saint who was shown hell. It was a woman who felt she was on the brink of losing her soul. This period of spiritual lukewarmness and inner conflict reached a crisis point. Teresa felt trapped. She knew she wasn't living up to her vows, and she was terrified of the spiritual danger she was in. She prayed for a change, for a definitive sign to shake her from her complacency. And she got one. It was during this intense period of personal crises that the vision occurred. She didn't ask to see hell. She was simply praying, seeking a deeper conversion, when she was suddenly, without warning, plunged into it. In her own words, written in her autobiography, The Life of Teresa of Jesus, she explains the experience. She says she was in prayer one day when she found herself, in spirit, in hell. She didn't know how it happened, but she understood instantly where she was. This wasn't a dream or a figment of her imagination. To her, it was a direct, sensory experience. A grace from God meant to show her the place she had deserved for her sins. This is a key point. She saw it as a place prepared for her, a consequence of her own choices had she not received God's mercy. So what did she see? Her description is visceral and terrifying. The entrance, she said, was like a long, narrow alley, a low, dark, and confined space, almost like being squeezed into an oven. The ground was a filthy mud, crawling with vermin and emitting a disgusting, pestilential stench. There was no light, only a thick, oppressive darkness. Yet, paradoxically, she could see everything that was horrifying, as if the darkness itself contained a strange, terrible light that illuminated only the suffering. But the physical torments were just the beginning. What truly horrified Teresa was the inner, spiritual agony. She described a fire, but not a physical one that burns the body. This was a fire of the soul, an inner despair and suffocation that was infinitely more painful than any flame. She felt her soul being squeezed, choked, and torn apart. It was a hopelessness so profound, so absolute, that she knew there was no possibility of comfort or relief, ever. Imagine feeling the most intense pain you've ever experienced, but knowing it will never, ever end. Imagine feeling a crushing sadness, a complete and total despair, with no hope of a single moment of peace. Teresa described a feeling of a death agony of the soul. It was an unending dying, yet never being able to die. She felt a torment and hopelessness that she said words could never adequately describe. Even trying to explain it, she felt, was a pale imitation of the reality. One of the most striking parts of her account is the feeling of being utterly alone, yet surrounded by what caused her pain. She felt no external tormentors, no demons jabbing her with pitchforks like in medieval paintings. The torment came from within. Her own despair, her own separation from God, was the source of the agony. It was the full, crushing weight of a soul that has completely rejected its source of life and love. She understood in that moment that hell is not just a place God sends you. It's the natural conclusion of a life lived apart from Him. She writes that even though she was there for what felt like a very short time perhaps, only a few moments, though she later called it an hour, the memory was seared into her mind. She said if she lived for many thousands of years, she could never forget it. The physical pain was so intense that she felt as if her body was being disjointed. Yet that was nothing compared to the agony of her soul. After the vision ended, she was trembling and terrified. Even now, she said, just writing about it years later made her blood run cold. But this terrifying experience was not meant to simply scare her. It had a profound and immediate purpose. It was the ultimate wake-up call. The vision completely obliterated her lukewarmness. From that moment on, her commitment to God was absolute. The worldly comforts and friendships that had once distracted her seemed utterly insignificant compared to the eternal reality she had witnessed. The vision ignited in her a fierce love and gratitude for God's mercy. She wasn't angry or resentful for being shown such a horror. She was overwhelmingly thankful. She saw it as a supreme act of love, a warning to save her from a fate she was moving towards. Her reaction wasn't one of fear-based servility, but of passionate, grateful love. It fueled her desire to do everything in her power to please God and to avoid even the smallest sins. Furthermore, the vision gave her a deep and burning compassion for other souls. The thought that anyone else could end up in that place of eternal despair was unbearable to her. This wasn't a smug, "I'm saved and they're not" attitude. It was a profound sorrow and a powerful motivation. It drove her mission for the rest of her life. The reform of the Carmelite order. She founded new convents that returned to a stricter, more prayerful way of life. Not out of a desire for harsh rules, but because she believed that a life of prayer and penance could help save souls from the fate she had witnessed. Her entire life's work, her writings, her foundations, can be seen as a direct response to that 1 hour in hell. She wrote, "I do not think I could bear my trials, were it not that I had seen the place I should have to occupy. If I did not bear them." The vision gave her the strength to endure immense hardships, opposition, and physical illness. Whenever she was suffering, she would remember the vision and consider her current pains as nothing in comparison. It gave her an eternal perspective. So, what can we take away from this incredible and chilling story today? First, it's a powerful reminder of the reality of consequence. Saint Teresa's vision reinforces the traditional Christian teaching that our choices in this life have eternal significance. It's a sobering call to examine our own lives, to ask ourselves if we are living with the same spiritual complacency she once did. Second, it's a story of incredible mercy. The vision wasn't a condemnation, it was a rescue. It shows a God who is willing to do something dramatic and terrifying out of love, to shake a soul awake before it's too late. It highlights that, no matter how far we've strayed, the path back is always open, and God's mercy is greater than our sin. And finally, it's a story about the power of transformation. 1 hour, one experience, completely reoriented a person's life. It shows that a genuine encounter with ultimate reality, whether of divine love or of divine justice, has the power to change us completely. For Teresa, it turned a lukewarm nun into one of the greatest saints and reformers in church history. Her experience reminds us that it is never too late for a profound conversion. Saint Teresa's vision of hell is not an easy story to hear. It's dark, it's disturbing, and it challenges our modern sensibilities. But within its horror lies a powerful message of hope, mercy, and the transformative power of God's love. It forceder, and it forces us to ask the big questions about life, death, and what truly matters in the end. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into one of history's most powerful mystical visions. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries of faith and history. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you make of Saint Teresa's vision? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.